All right, let's talk about the Florida Gators. It has been a very good offseason for Florida. We're seeing the Billy Napier strategy and all of the leadership, the moves they've made, pushing this program in a direction where it needs to return to, and that's at the top of the SEC and eventually the top of the college football world. And to that end, Napier and his staff has pulled off an outstanding set of moves here to put this program in a really good position. I think you Florida Gators fans are really going to love this. But first, I am Nick, that is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Florida Gators have had a really good offseason, right? Obviously, they got the future in terms of the next couple of years of the quarterback position with DJ Lagway. They've slowly and incrementally improved the talent on the roster. We covered that about a week or so ago when we last talked about the Florida Gators. And now we're seeing the flywheel effect. We talk about it on this channel. When you start building some success, the recruiting game, you get good players coming in, and then suddenly more and more good players want to come in, and then more and more and more, and it becomes just this tidal wave of talent. And that's exactly what we're seeing when it comes to Florida. Let's pull up these latest set of tweets here highlighting from the great Hayes Fawcett. You should follow him on X. The latest set of moves that the Florida Gators have pulled off in the recruiting department. Again, courtesy of Hayes Fawcett. We're going to go through all three of them here. They're on the screen, top to bottom. Breaking, 4-star running back Carson Baker has committed to Florida. He tells me for @On3 Recruits. The 6'2", 200-pound running back from Fairburn, Georgia, chose the Gators over Florida State, South Carolina, and Ohio State. That's tough recruiting competition there. Florida won. Next one, 4-star wide receiver Marquez Daniel has committed to Florida. He tells me for @On3 Recruits. The 6'6", 197-pound receiver from Tuskegee, Alabama, chose the Gators over Auburn, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Again, big recruiting competition there. Florida Gators won. All right, and finally there at the bottom, 4-star defensive lineman Jarayla McCoy has committed to Florida. He tells me the 6'7", 245-pound defensive line from Tupelo, Mississippi, chose the Gators over Texas and LSU. Once again, really strong recruiting competition there. Florida Gators won. What we're seeing from the Florida Gators is literally the flywheel effect that I mentioned a second ago coming into fruition, right? Things like this doesn't happen overnight. It's taken a few years for the Florida Gators under Napier, and of course the addition and emergence of DJ Lagway certainly helps, but we saw this the second half of last season. The young talent slowly come together and the team playing better football, and now we're seeing from a regional perspective, the Southeastern Conference, obviously the best region when it comes to raw recruiting talent and just firepower in the entire country. Florida's asserting some level of dominance, beating out massive top programs for high-quality recruits. And we talked about this about a week or so ago when we last covered Florida. In fact, let's pull up this chart here that we talked about at the time, if you don't mind, on the screen here, talking about the Florida Gators total recruiting score. And we saw us going back to 2022. You can see it from left to right, 2022 through 2025. You can see from 22, they had a spike from 22, 23 to 24, they stabilized, and then 25, another spike. What we're seeing is that flywheel effect, because once you have that spike on the far right side of the screen right there, and that talent level accelerates, other players, other recruits start to notice, right? The early spike, it's like, oh, okay, Florida had a down year. Now they're up to a decent level, and they sit there for a couple years, and then bang, they elevate their talent. And then suddenly a lot of other recruits are like, hey, this Florida team's stacked. Like a lot of 4-star and 5-star guys, they want to go play for the Gators. Because they look at and they see other 4- and 5-star guys that want to play for the Gators and have committed to the Gators and have signed to the Gators. And then it becomes this massive compounding effect. Now you have to have results on Saturdays, and that's what the DJ Lagway effect comes in. Having a superstar young talent quarterback that just reinvigorated the program. They started playing really good football down the stretch in 2024. That will fly into their recruiting talent, and that's what we're seeing with Florida right now. Just a massive overload, a massive increase in overall talent and depth across the entire roster. This was what Billy Napier was essentially brought in to do. It was not going to be an overnight process, and we have to see the results on Saturdays. What happens over 2025 and 2026, the football regular season, will be absolutely critical if this strategy truly can work out. But based on the offseason, based on the numbers, and based on the reporting so far, it's very clear that Billy Napier and his staff with the Florida Gators have done a great job, a smart job, executing their strategy. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Florida fans, in the comment section below, we're talking a lot of big-time recruits here for Florida as we get closer and closer to the regular season. But let us know. We're going to switch gears on here for you. Who is your favorite walk-on? A guy who showed up to Florida, who showed up to Gainesville without a scholarship, who went on to do great things for the program, whether they became a good player or just a good player, a role model on the team, whatever it may be. Give us your favorite walk-on. This is really curious. I want to hear what you guys have to say in Florida Gators history. Put them in the comment section below. But Miles, over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest news out of Florida?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is great news for the Gators, just showing that things are trending in the right direction for the Gators. I think this is a team that really is, on the upswing. And, I think that was the key here is we needed to see that, like you said, the flywheel come into effect. Yes, we saw, early a shaky start to Billy Napier's career, put him on the hot seat at times. Then we see last year, in and out, we see the sparks of the DJ Lagway effect. Then towards the end of the year, we see a really strong finish. The Gators doing a lot of good stuff in that regard. So I think that was really important for the Gators here. But now we're saying, can they capitalize on that? Were they able to kind of explode? Are they able to keep it going, or is it just going to be a 1 year type of thing? Oh, we saw a nice bump for Florida. Maybe it's going to help them out a little bit. Are they going to keep it going on into the out years? Are they get the future of this team? Is it going to be quite as strong? And we're already seeing, yes, 3 great 4-star players. They're able to win away from some of the top teams in all of college football. Some teams that have some of the biggest recruiting budgets. I'm sure Florida has a big budget, but you look at teams like Texas, you look at teams like Ohio State. This is a team that is going up against some of the top dogs in all of college football the last couple of years, and they're winning. They're getting the good players, not just a 3-star or an unranked player. These are top guys. These are contenders. I think this is really important for the Gators going forward, and I think this just shows Billy Napier and this team, they're going in the right direction and they're capitalizing on the momentum. The flywheel is in effect, like you said, and I think this is something really special going on for Florida. Now, we're going to have to see it come onto the field again. I think they're going to have to have another strong season that's going to compel and really throw this thing into full gear, and we're going to start to seeing it. I'm not saying just because they've got some great recruits right now, this is a team going to go contend for the national championship this year. I think they'll be very good. I think they'll be ranked. I think they'll be, maybe getting closer to middle of the top 25 this year. But I think after another solid year under their belt, another year of growth for DJ Lagway, that's when this team's really going to break out. There's going to be a little bit more of this flywheel that's going to have to compound before they absolutely explode and fly off the chart. But early signs show Florida has a lot going on. There's a lot of great stuff going on for the Gators. I think they're capitalizing on it correctly. I think Billy Napier showing why they went out and hired him as to be the head coach. And I think this is all great signs for the Gators to show there's a bright future. There's not just a bright right now. There's not just a bright spot at the last year's season. This is a team that's capitalizing and really taking things and notching them up for the future.
Yeah, and I really think it's the timing of the strategy that you have to focus on too. So let me give you an example of when the strategy is a total failure. And we talk about the Texas A&M Aggies under Jimbo Fisher. They're a great case study, right? Because they had a lot of money, a lot of resources. They put a lot of money on a big name head coach, and the timing of what was going on with A&M really had the red flag. So in 2020, Texas A&M just missed out on being one of the Final Four teams in the old college football playoff system. They went to the Orange Bowl, won the Orange Bowl. They finished the season with 1 loss. They were the number 5, number 4 team in the country, depending on whatever poll you looked at, and they were like trending in the right direction. Everything going in their favor. But in 2021, they had a good recruiting class, but it wasn't a great recruiting class, and they regressed a little bit. They only won 8 games. And then in 2022, suddenly they had a number 1 recruiting class in the country. And that doesn't make sense, right? The time to have the number 1 recruiting class in the country would have theoretically been after their best season in 10 years. But that didn't happen, right? They actually had a dip. When you're winning and you have momentum, you should see your success accelerate in recruiting. You should never see it decelerate. Likewise, if you have a down season, it's really strange if suddenly you have a massive uptick in recruiting. What we're seeing with Florida is organic. It's natural. It's a progression of the strategy, like I showed on the chart a few minutes ago. It took a few years. You have to build the effect. You have to slowly increase your recruiting baseline and then get better players, and then now add more players at a new high-quality baseline, and then repeat as the flywheel effect continues to compound. We saw it at the end of last season. You have some momentum coming together. This Florida team's ending on a good note. Good bowl victory. Looked very good in the bowl victory. I know it's not a huge bowl game, but you take it as however you get them. You can only play who you're assigned. Good finish to the season overall. Future looks bright with the quarterback. Suddenly you make some good coaching additions. Suddenly your staff, your overall organization, you have some good additions, some good hires there. And then you bring in a lot of really great recruits, and then you bring in more great recruits. And then suddenly you go into the 2025 season with a lot of momentum and a better football team. And this is exactly the organic growth strategy that Napier promised that the Florida Gators were looking for. Once again, they have to execute on Saturdays, right? We're not going to go ahead and get ahead of ourselves and say, oh, this team's going to go undefeated and win the national title, they're going to win the SEC. Done deal. Not so. They have to execute on Saturdays, and they've got a little bit more to go, right? They're not exactly where they need to be there yet. But it's very clear, if you look at Napier and his staff, that they had a clear strategy. Wasn't perfect, right? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, and the Gators and Napier specifically, they got punched in the mouth a few times. We're being totally honest over the past couple seasons. But they course corrected where they needed to course correct. They solved a lot of problems. They basically iterated as they found the issues and put themselves in a better position, and now we're seeing the results, right? And this is the trajectory that we need to see from any team when you're trying to contend. Slowly but steadily build better talent, then increase your talent baseline, and then get depth across the organization while pairing that with getting better on the field on Saturdays. It's those two working together that puts teams over the top. I'm always hesitant, just to reiterate this, if there's a team that's, has a great season and then they have a dip in recruiting. TCU made the national title game. I know they got killed, but they still made the national title game a few years ago. They had a massive dip in recruiting after the season. They didn't elevate. Okay, that's a red flag. That was a one and done. Not going to happen. I brought up the A&M issue a couple minutes ago, right? Florida is not following that track. They're building momentum on the field while also building momentum off of those field. And when those two things combine, greatness can happen in programs. Like I said 5,000 times at this point, we still have to see the results when we actually play real football live when we kick off in the fall. But it's very clear that this Florida Gators team is trending in the right direction.